Let's talk about episode 2 of season 2 of Gypsy Rose Life After Lockup. We get to catch up with Ryan and Pixie, and Ryan was doing the exact opposite of how I was hoping he would be doing. I was hoping that Ryan would be moving on, he'd have him a nice little baddie lined up, but instead, Ryan's still simping super hard for Gypsy. He's holding on to hope that she's going to come running back to him, even though she's knocked up by a whole nother man. And Gypsy said that Ryan even told her on the phone one day, oh, you can just come running back to me and I'll raise that child as my own. But even her stepmom, Christy, was like, I think that's a terrible idea because that baby's going to grow up and look just like you and Ken. I don't think Ryan would specifically resent the baby in that case. I feel like even if, say, Gypsy came back to him and ended up running off again, he would always love that baby because he'd always see it as a part of Gypsy that he can hold on to, kind of how he sees Pixie right now. But I do feel like it would cause arguments as they get older because he's going to just look at that baby and be a constant reminder that Gypsy left him for another man and got knocked up at one point. I just feel like too much has been done that Ryan needs to understand that that's probably never going to be a thing ever again. And it's very obvious that Gypsy finally realizes how bad of a relationship she had. And it wasn't so much because of what Ryan was doing, but it was so much just because they were not compatible at all. She was trying to force the compatibility. We can even see that in the clips compared to when she first got out of prison. And I understand it was awkward because that was the first time they were living together, but they spent a lot of time together while she was in prison. Ryan was constantly visiting her, and when she got out, as soon as she got with Ken, you could tell everything was just flowing so easily. Like, she didn't have to try as hard in the relationship or really put as much of an effort to be herself. And I think that really shows how comfortable she really is with Ken and how compatible she is. One thing I've learned in life is you cannot force compatibility. And if you do, you're just compromising your true self. Like, you're forcing the compatibility and you're suppressing your own needs and desires to fit someone else's mold. Gypsy told Ken that Ryan has been reaching out to her, and she shared a lot of the same thoughts I shared about Ryan in my last video, that I feel like Ryan is so hyper focused on Gypsy that he could be missing out on the love of his life. Like, he could have some girl in his DMs, or maybe some girl he works with that's really interested in him that he's not even noticing because he's too focused on somebody who doesn't want him. And Gypsy has made it crystal clear that she just wants him to move on. And she said that a month will go by, she'll be thinking that he finally has a girlfriend. And I do the same thing. Like, when we hear Ryan quiet and he doesn't go live on TikTok, I'm like, okay, he's finally moved on. He's finally got him a girlfriend. Then he pops up on live and he's still simping super hard for Gypsy. And at this point, I guess it's best that he's not dating, because he would just end up hurting whoever he's dating, because he's obviously not over Gypsy yet. And I would not want to constantly have to hear about Gypsy if that was Ryan's girlfriend. And you can tell that's going to be the case because he cannot get that girl off his mind. Then we see Gypsy, she goes to the dentist and all her back molars were silver caps, so she finally was able to get, it looked like a partial or like a snap-on kind of denture put in place, and her teeth look super good now. It's a complete 180 from what she initially started with when she first got out of prison. Then we got to see her go out to eat with Ken, where she was talking about Ryan and the whole situation. Then she came back home and her sister decided to try out this baby Doppler she got, and they got to hear the baby's heartbeat. But again, that just didn't really feel as exciting because we've already seen this on TikTok. That's the only problem I have with this season, is it seems like a lot of the exclusives, Lifetime acts like they have this season, is stuff that really doesn't even feel like exclusives because we've already seen it on Gypsy's social media. Then Gypsy decides to set Ken down, and really share that she feels like there needs to be this sense of urgency when it comes to getting the baby everything the baby needs, because the baby's gonna be here soon, and here they are about to move Ken into this house that Gypsy plans to move into once she's off parole. And Ken's explaining, we don't need to get all this stuff for the baby until the baby's off parole. And Gypsy's like, wait a minute, the baby's off parole? And he's like, okay, I misspoke. But Gypsy, and now it makes sense, because when Gypsy first came out with her baby registry, she had multiples of everything. And I remember covering it in a video. I'm like, okay, why does this girl have like a $2,000 crib, then she has like $1,000 bassinet, then she has like 2 high chairs? And I figured at the time when I was seeing it, I'm like, okay, she's probably gonna have one for her parents' house and one for Ken's house. And this seems like exactly what she was trying to do. She's telling Ken, look, we need to buy all this stuff. And he's like, look, you already bought this stuff and you have it at your parents' house. And she's like, yeah, but I'm not going to be taking this to my parents' house to your house. This isn't going to be going back and forth with me all the time. Like, she's not trying to deal with the headache. And Ken's like, no, I'm not about to buy 2 of everything. And I'm on Ken's side, because I always overbought for all my babies. I thought I had to have everything that they show, like on the baby registry checkoff list, and I went overboard, and there's so much stuff that I ended up giving away that I didn't even use at all or more than one time. I think Gypsy just has the money, so she doesn't really think twice about it. She just goes right to that Amazon checkout and hits submit. But Ken is more the voice of reason. He's like, look, this baby does not need to get no crib until she's off parole, and she's not even gonna need a crib until she's 8 months. Like, Ken knows more about the baby than Gypsy does. They already have a bassinet, and Ken is completely correct. The baby's not going to need a crib at first. It's going to grow into the crib eventually. And I agree with Ken. What's the point of buying all this stuff before they move into the house? I would want to move into the house and buy things one by one and slowly fill up the room, instead of going overboard like Gypsy obviously did at her mother's house, where she got this her stepmother's house and father's house, where she got like a changing table in her bedroom, and she doesn't even have any idea where the hell she's gonna put it because she doesn't have any room at all. I'm on Ken's side there, because I do the same thing. Like, if I know I'm gonna move like in the next year, I put off buying like anything I need to for the next year until I move, because who wants to move anything more than they have to? Even if you're paying movers to do it, I mean, still a headache, because you still gotta move it inside your place once it actually gets moved there and set it up and all that. And the only thing I did disagree with Ken on was, he's like, yeah, you don't need a rocking chair. You can just breastfeed the baby on the floor. I'm like, okay, no, you can't. Like, yes, you can, and that'll save you money, but that's going to be so uncomfortable. And if you're a breastfeeding mother, you're literally going to be spending half of your day breastfeeding, so you want to make sure you're in a comfortable position. And I don't even think Gypsy ended up breastfeeding, because as soon as I saw that baby come out, and every single video I've seen of her with that baby, she's feeding that baby with a bottle, and it appears to be formula milk. Or even like if they have like a reclining chair, like you don't have to get a full-on gliding rocking chair like they claim you need for the nursery. A good old reclining chair will work too, that just goes back and forth. Either way, I think she needs a nice comfortable chair. I think that's one sacrifice that Kenny Boy does need to be willing to make. I know he's used to just living on the bare minimum as a man, but once you're a father, it's best to have, like, like I said, you don't need to have everything like some people who overbuy. And I do think there's things Gypsy did overbuy with. Like, she thought she needed, we have to have the baby breezer, we have to have the bottle warmer, we have to have the wipe warmer, we have to have the bottle sterilizer. And some of those things are good, but those aren't essentials that you need to have that are required to have. You know how they have those like pregnancy bellies they make you wear in high school to make you feel like how it is to be pregnant? I think they need to do that with Ken, but they need to give him like some fake breast filled with milk that are just constantly leaking out all day, and let him try to experience how it is to like breastfeed a fake baby and deal with like engorged breasts and pepperoni nipples that you have right after you give birth, and sit there and do it on the floor crouched over for hours on each day and see how he feels about it. Because literally breastfeeding is like a part-time job just in itself. Then we finally get to see Ken move into his new house, and he's super excited. He's got a nice big yard. He's got a sidewalk that he can walk his dog with. And I'm happy for him because now his dog's going to be able to live a much better quality of life. I forgot to mention that Gypsy also found Ken's ex-girlfriend's hairbrush, or at least what she thought was his ex-girlfriend's hairbrush, but Ken was like, no, that's my hairbrush. And she's like, no, then why is there long blonde strands of hair in it? And all of a sudden it just really triggered Gypsy, and she got really jealous and was like, yeah, he's just in here living his best life, banging blonde chicks while I'm in prison crying my eyes out. And Ken is still adamant that was his hairbrush. And also, I don't know if you guys have heard, but I'm sure a lot of you guys who are following this case have heard the updates that the recent FOIAs came out with new evidence that was never really public information before, because Gypsy didn't go to trial, so a lot of evidence was not submitted or allowed in court. And there's a lot that came out, like there's videos that Gypsy and Nick were sending each other. Like they had sent over 100 videos to each other in the 2 years that they had been dating. And Gypsy, all her videos were like super sexual, where she's talking about dominating Nick and making him her little slave. There's videos, multiple videos, where she was pleasing herself with electronic toothbrush, and even her ex Dan said that she used to send him videos of herself pleasing herself with electronic toothbrush to him. But she came out and tried to act like Nick is the one who would like direct these videos and would tell her like what to say and what to do. And they actually believe that while she was doing her court hearing for this whole case. But it has came out from these videos, and the officers who watched these videos and took notes, that only a few of the 100 videos were actually directed by Nick, and the rest, they believe, were completely made up by Gypsy. And here she is trying to put all the blame on Nick. She tried to make it seem like Nick was the mastermind behind all these videos, and like he was pushing this twisted BDSM fantasy on her, when actually the officers noticed that she was the one that was actually pushing it all on him and telling him to act things out and do certain things. But that's it for this video, guys. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Give this video a thumbs up, subscribe, and thank you so much for watching.